So they're almost at extinction. And through grace, this brother and sister science team discovers that they can harness the shape of the torus and create a mini universe. And if they can spin it fast enough, and what they do, and this is just part of the story, is they use all of their resources, pretty much every last resource of energy, to spin this original torus fast enough to get it to self-generate and become a self-generating energy source that then, once they perfected it, they can then turn it into everything that little one tiny could power a computer to a larger could power a whole city. And then
you got to accentuate the positive. Wow, I feel good. A little bit of feel good goes a long way.
You're listening to Karen Swain, teacher of deliberate creation, accentuating the positive, showing you a way to a better life.
Accentuating the positive, it's not just fad, it's sanity. Who in their right mind would accentuate anything else?
If you feel like that's what you want to do.
Hi there, welcome to another show, Accentuating the Positive with Karen Swain. As always, wonderful to be with you all again. And please remember, if you're liking the shows, hit that subscribe button and that like button and send us a message. Leave your comment and let us know what you think. I always love to hear your points of view, all of them, all your points of view. Well, today on the show, I have the glorious Dayna Dunbar to speak to us about her latest project. Welcome to the show, Dayna.
Thank you. So wonderful to be here. Thank you for having me on, Karen.
This is very exciting, actually, and we've got a lot to talk about, because you sent me an email saying, you know, I listen to the shows and I really believe in what you're doing, and I'm listening to you, and I'm like, oh, she's so aligned with what I'm doing. Like, we're completely aligned. Yes. But let me tell people a little bit about you, because I've got your bio here. As a child, Dayna was an avid reader of classic novels, wanting to tell stories like the ones she read. Her first foray into creative writing was in an elective screenwriting class in college, but her teacher was very discouraging. So Dayna believed she would never succeed as a writer. She searched for her place and purpose in the world, but it wasn't until June 1994, while camping in Sedona, Arizona with a friend, Dayna had an encounter with an extraterrestrial being of light who communicated she would write about this race of beings in the future. This is when her writing journey began, as she wanted to share the story of this race with the world. But creating an awakened world novel with well-developed characters and a compelling story was beyond her skills at the time. So Dayna began writing screenplays. She worked on the crew of the film William Shakespeare's Romeo and Juliet, starring Leonardo DiCaprio, and this spurred her creativity even further. After finishing the film, she wrote 4 screenplays in 4 years, teaching herself writing and storytelling with feedback from industry professionals. Dayna received her master's degree in spiritual psychology and wrote her first novel, The Saints and the Sinners of OK County, a story about Aletta Honor, a woman who overcomes her self-doubt and shame and follows her inner voice to find her authentic self. I'm loving the synopsis of this book. Her second novel, The Wings That Fly Us Home, is a sequel to Saints and Sinners and has received wonderful reviews. In 2014, almost exactly 20 years to the day Dayna had the ET encounter, she finally began the novel, receiving the idea and the title, Awake, The Legacy of AKARA, a spiritual sci-fi thriller about an awakened race of beings. In order to complete the task, she began working with the brilliant Julia Nadine Padua, who you met when you were undertaking your master's degree in spiritual psychology at the University of Santa Monica. Julia, a former award-winning Madison Avenue advertising executive, is currently a spiritual intuitive life purpose coach and writer and creative consultant and collaborator. Together, they labored for 7 years to perfect the manuscript and share it with the world. at this turbulent time in the evolution of human consciousness. Today, Dayna is an award-winning novelist published by Ballantine Books. Her 2 previous novels were selected for exclusive Ballantine Readers Circle. With Awake, she has fulfilled her lifelong desire to write a spiritual sci-fi fiction thriller inspired by her ET encounter. So cool. And you've had some amazing people, write about the book. You've had Ileana Van Dance. I don't even know how to say her name, but she's...
No, I can say her name, yes. It's Iyanla Van Zant, yes.
Say it again.
Iyanla Van Zant.
Yeah. And Marcy Smirnoff, Dr. Jean Houston, Dr. Ron Hulnick, Rick Archer, Daniel Schmidt, Aaron Abke, Asira Sananda. So that's the Australian spiritual teacher.
That's right. Yes, Asira, yes.
Years. There's a stack of them. And I'm amazed when I read all these things, like, how did you find all these people? How did you know all these people? How did you find them?
Well, between Julia and me, we had some contacts, but honestly, Rick Archer, who is the host of Buddha at the Gas Pump podcast, we sent him, we did not know him. We sent him a book, a manuscript, and he absolutely fell in love with it. And he sent out to many of his contacts that he's interviewed and said, would you give them a blurb? Because he's a huge believer in it. He thinks it's like the next Star Wars or Matrix. His quote is just incredible. And Asira said the same thing. She compared it to films like that. So so we were able to get to some really amazing people through him. And then we have some contacts ourselves as well.
Yeah, amazing. Look, my desire to see more media, the reason I went on media 12 years ago now was because I saw how the media industry is pumping out so much fear and violence. And I just, in my small drop in the ocean, I just thought, I've got to pump out some more enlightened messages. And so that was my whole purpose for going on media as a spiritual teacher. I've got to say the media has taken over my identity. People think, aren't you just a podcast interviewer? And I'm like, no,
right.
I'm a spiritual teacher, but this is my service to sort of pump out messages through the media. Because I love watching, movies and media. I love this. It's such a powerful avenue of information. And I think that many people know that. Anyway, there's a longer story. But let's hear about what happened all those years ago in 1994.
Well, I went camping in Sedona, which is a hugely powerful, if not the most powerful, energy vortex in the United States. And huge red rock spires at this place and vortexes everywhere. And so went camping there, and it was up 3 miles up this dirt road, very remote. You can't even get up there really anymore now, and certainly can't camp. And found a place. A friend of mine told me about this place, like drive 3 miles. It was like, this secret location, and went with my then girlfriend. And the site itself was just 360 degrees of red rock spires, going up into the celestial realms. It was just amazing. And we there was this medicine wheel on the place, but when we showed up, and it was just this very powerful place. Well, neither of us, we both thought, well, surely there are extraterrestrials because of just the sheer number of planets in the world, but it wasn't anything that either of us was drawn to, or, it's like astrology, cool, but it's not something I'm putting my time into type of thing for me. And so, but one day we went down and to town, and there are several New Age bookstores there, and we went into one to get out of the heat, and there was a meditation happening, and this man who was leading the meditation, at the end of the meditation, said, "We're calling in a mothership to come over the building." And Chris and I just looked at each other and we're like, what? There's no way, this is so Sedona, And he had written this book about UFO encounters in Sedona. We were like, this is so cool. It's like you go to a luau in Hawaii and you go to, the New Age bookstore UFO guy in Sedona. And so we went back up, and that same day, we just went to the medicine wheel and did some, spiritual practice, just put on some beautiful music. And as the sun was pretty much right as it set and the sky was darkening, I looked up, and in like this, it was like in the constellation Scorpio, right on the horizon. I saw, it was, as soon as I looked at it, this light started moving, and it started moving away from us in this swimming kind of motion. And I went, Chris, it's moving. And she turned around, she goes, oh my God, it is. And something came over me. I think it was because we'd been in nature for 3 days and we'd been doing these practices, whatever it was. I just was like, if you see us, if you know that we're here, we see you, and we can communicate with you. We'll communicate with you. So I just reached out to them. And the instant I said that, the light started to move back toward us, and it came right in front of us. And then it seemingly out of nowhere, these two other smaller lights, because they were farther away. I'm not sure if it was the size of the ships or how the distance, but the big one was right in the center. And then these two other ones were right here. And they were like sentries, like two little sentries. And then the big one here. And it was kind of this orangish hue, and I couldn't see any metal or anything. It was this light that was moving, this moving light, and kind of like spinning light. And I said, I got afraid at that point. And I said, Chris, they want to talk to you because Chris had done some astral projection before. And I had never done anything like that before. I'd been meditating for some time and had some interesting experiences with that, but I just was like, they want to talk to you. So she actually went out to the medicine wheel, and she laid down in the medicine wheel, and that's how she meditated. So she laid down, and immediately I saw a light come out of her body and go up to the ship and then come back down, like circle. And I just went, oh, you be good to her. And I heard immediately, just telepathically, I heard a female voice that said, don't worry, we will. And I could not believe it, Karen. I recognized the voice. And I said, oh my God, Kaya, is that you? And the reason I knew this voice is because for the previous 6 months, something had happened to me that I'd never experienced before. And that was when I meditated, which I was just doing like breathing, watching my breath practice. This energy, I felt this being in front of me, and she, every time I closed my eyes to meditate, she would just be there right in front of me. And we would just have this beautiful, just this loving experience, and not really any talking. And I told a few friends and I said, I don't know what's happening, but this chick keeps showing up, I don't know who she is, but she says her name's Kaya. And so I really believe that she had been preparing me for 6 months for this encounter, because time is relative, like it doesn't exist, especially for them. So it was like, because, I was not really very prepared for this experience. Chris was able to do this thing, but so I said, oh my God, Kaya, is that you? And she said, yes, it is. And we started to have a communication. And I asked her, why are you here? And she said, we're here because the Earth is in a very important transition right now. There's a really big possibility of evolution or destruction. And she said, we are here not only observing, which is very important to us to see what's going to happen, but to hold for the planets as well. She did say they were not going to interfere, land on White House lawn or something like that. She said, but they are holding for us. And when they have an opportunity to have a connection like this, which it seems it was not that often that they would do that. And then we just, sat in this kind of, beautiful love. Like I've never felt the kind of love, the amount of love I felt was so powerful. And then at some point I saw that the light from going from Chris up to the ship stopped, and she stood up right after the light stopped. and came back over, and she told me her experience, and which was amazing. I don't really go into it because it was her experience, but she was with a male being who was also just this profound loving experience, and no huge fireworks, but just this incredible communion. And then I said, well, I was in the middle of a conversation, so I think I should finish it. And so I went out into the medicine wheel, and I looked up at the ship, and I said, okay, I'm ready. I'm ready to come up. And Kaya she said, it was like kind of like, hold on a moment. And I could tell she was communicating with the other beings. And she came back to me and she said, you can't come up. She said, you're not ready. Your energy body, you wouldn't be able to handle it. And I was really disappointed for a moment. And I said, oh, why not? And she's like, yeah, you can't handle it. And so I said, well, can you come here? And she said, yes, I can. And I really understood at that moment that if I hadn't asked, she wouldn't have come. So she was very happy that I asked. So I immediately saw in front of me, I closed my eyes because that's how I'd always communicated with her. And then I felt her presence more than I ever had before, right in front of me, just like as physical presence. And then I opened my eyes and I saw an outline of her face and her torso, but just barely. It was like this filament of light, but I could barely see her. And it was just beautiful. But I was just like, oh, I want to see her. And then suddenly the fire from the campfire, the smoke from the campfire wafted over her face and her neck and her shoulder, and it filled in her features. When you hold a flashlight into smoke, how you could see the beam like it's solid. I could see her whole face and her neck and her shoulder, and she was beautiful. She was hairless. Her eye was she had a large eye, and she was very lean and long, beautiful kind of neck. And so, and then I was just breathtaking. And then we just sat there, and she, like I said, the love was so powerful, and she wanted to touch me so badly. She was so it was like this loving presence, and she wanted to hold me. And so at one point she put her hand on my shoulder, this shoulder here, and it went inside of my body, and I started to shake. My energy body went like this, and I couldn't, and I said, you can't touch me. And because I couldn't handle where she was vibrating at, her energy. And then we just sat there, and it was just this bliss until I finally just said, well, I should probably go back to Chris. And she said, yes, you should. And I stood up and walked back, and then we just sat there and watched them. And they just they did all these different maneuvers, and being in one place at one time and then appearing in another place. And we just watched them till 2:00 in the morning, and they just were flying around. And then the next day, and then we went to bed, and the next day I got the guidance that I would write about them one day.
Whoa.
Yeah.
Whoa. Okay. Oh, so many questions. Where are they from? Comes up. Did they say?
She didn't say. My sense is there's a Pleiadian connection. Mm-hmm. That's where they are in the book, that I put them in the book. But she didn't say. It was so interesting because there was so little. And if I had to do it over again, I'm sure I would have gotten more mental with it, maybe taking notes or something. But partly I was just immersed in this bliss state with her, this loving presence that none of that mattered. So we didn't have a lot of conversation, but I did afterwards. I started getting downloads of sacred geometry, of quantum science, quantum healing, all kinds of downloads, like how the earth is moving from one dimension to the next and how we're in this transition, seeing visual representations of all this. So almost everything went into the book. So I did get a lot of information later, but I'm not exactly sure the planet.
But you still have communication with her.
Yes, it's never been like that again, like that level. But she is now she's like one of my guides.
Yeah.
She's a guide for me, and I know her presence is so powerful. And yeah, it's wild because I think, and I've been reading more about this, that it's like I feel like in a way she might be me from the future.
That was the next question.
Yeah.
You've totally read my mind. What's your relationship with her? Are you part of her race? Are you her in the future? Yeah.
I think I just got chills when I said it. I'm kind of just now opening up to that. Yeah. I just had a powerful inner experience where she did come to me very, very strongly in her energy body. And I was like blown away because it's like, I think she's me and possibly like not just me, but like kind of like I don't know if you know the law of one material, but like a social memory complex, they're a group of souls, but somehow, some manifestation of my soul in the future is what it's starting to kind of come to me, and it freaks me. I'm like, it's hard for me to honestly say that, to be honest, Karen, because she was so powerful and magnificent. So that kind of just shows like, oh, I'm still, identifying myself to some degree with this, little limited incarnation, which is nuts. I know, because but that's how magnificent she is.
But that's how magnificent we all are. And I was saying to someone in one of the last podcasts or shows, or I don't know, online, talking to somebody, that my hardest job is to convince people of their brilliance, because we all are we're an extension of the source. We're infinite creative potential. We're amazing. We can be anything, and yet from our human limited perspective, it's just that sentiment, that statement, like it's hard for me to believe that could be me, because that's
it feels so miraculous, magical, like the things that she can do in time and space are completely irrelevant. It's just total irrelevant. And the quantum science and everything is so cool.
and yet her message, or the arrangement that you be here now in a physical body and she be there in her whatever body, and that you have this communication, is to remind us, the human race, of our potential and who we are. I mean, that's it. That's it.
That's the whole thing. And that's what my novel is about. That's what the book is about, is to remind us of our potential, because we've really, you were saying this before, story has been hijacked.
Right.
It's been hijacked by the ego. Right. And it used to hold a place that was mythic and visionary and aspirational often. And now it's very rare that we see that. Jesus was a master storyteller, as we know. His story of his life, but the stories he told as well. Storytelling, so powerful. Tribal cultures worldwide tell stories to aspire to give vision of what they are, who we are in our souls, and what we can become. And now we're starting to see more and more this story of us, as I call it, like parasitic greed monsters, and like this dystopian vision of Earth as a ruined planet. That's the story. That's the prevalent story that we're seeing these days in one form or another. And so what I'm trying to do, it feels like quite a mountain climb, is to not, it's not like, okay, I really believe that all of that's going to go. People love their murder mysteries, and their cop shows and their whatever, and their soap opera dramas, but 30%, can we come up with 30% that are like this, that is like this super cool, story with teachings throughout, is that possible for us? So that's the guidance that I received.
In 1995, I went and did an Anthony Robbins thing in Hawaii. I don't know, something mastery, something like that. It's a long time ago. And he called it infotainment. Like infotainment. And we're getting so much information through our entertainment. And,
Yes.
what sort of messages are we getting? Oh, I could talk about that all day. But another question I have, Chris, what has she
Yes.
done with that encounter? Like, has she tucked it away? Has she written about it? Has she changed her life? Like, what did she do with that encounter?
Well, it stayed with her the whole time. It changed her in that it deepened her spirituality in a profound way. But she is kind of in awe of me actually around this, because she's like, you really did something with it. She said, we talked about it so much, and that, that this needs to get out. The story needs to get out. And you actually did it. You followed this for 20 years before I started writing. I wrote everything else in preparation for this. And so she's just kind of blown away. So she didn't really do anything with it in her life. But she's so happy that I did.
And through you becoming more public about it, is she willing to sort of talk about her experience? Is she willing to share it?
I'm sure she would be. Yeah. I'm sure she would be. Yeah.
Okay, so let's talk about the book. And you say AKARA and not AKARA, which I find interesting.
It's AKARA, yes.
Why do you pronounce it like that?
I don't know. That's just what came through.
That's what came through.
Yeah. Is AKARA more what Aussies would say?
No, it's not.
Okay.
But when you read it, like what's the name of the book? The Legacy of AKARA. I don't know. Just when I read it, I thought, and then I heard you say AKARA,
right.
And which is the way I pronounce my name. Most people call me Karen, but my mother was very insistent. It's Karen, but that heart A, that heart A is that heart chakra. It's the sound of the heart.
Yes.
So AKARA sort of is really evoking that heart energy.
Yes, beautiful. I love that. I hadn't thought of it.
Instead of AKARA. So
right.
So that was something that I picked up. So let's talk about the book. What's the premise of the book?
So it starts on AKARA, an awakened planet, and Mobius is a young candidate for the space discovery program, and he finds a relic while on a mission. He finds a relic from 1,000 years before on the planet, and on AKARA, 1,000 years before, they were in the ravaging era. They were in what we're basically in now, but even more heated up, more intense. And a space commander, he finds on this relic that a space commander from that era had gone to Earth, and which he didn't even know about at the time, and planted a time capsule in a Mayan pyramid that would cause the planet to implode on December 21st, 2012. So that's the reason for the end of the Mayan calendar. And he realizes he and his crew of Discovery Corps candidates and their mentor Kaya, race to Earth to save the planet. And because they've been for 1,000 years before, AKARA entered the age of the rebirthing, from the ravaging to the rebirthing. So now it's an awakened planet. And so they realize, oh my gosh, the ravaging era space commander is, going to destroy this beautiful planet. We have to go save it. So then they land on Earth, and then it's this geo quest with a jungle ranger in the Guatemalan Mayan Biosphere Preserve, where Tikal is. There are many Mayan ruins in Guatemala, and a billionaire heiress who is down trying to save animals. And they go on this geo quest through Mayan ruins, trying to find where this time capsule is and prevent the end of the world.
As I'm listening to the story, I'm thinking just the story of what Earth is going through at the moment would make an incredible high sci-fi novel for another planet.
It's true.
For another planet who's reading about this crazy Earth experience. And
they believe me, they're entertained. They are definitely fascinated with what's going on here and how we're going to handle this, and what, if we're going to make it through. For sure.
Absolutely.
So yeah, so the story is it's a fun. So what I was guided to do is write a fun sci-fi adventure that would get to a mainstream audience rather than some people who would never read nonfiction spiritual teaching. And so and there are many teachings throughout. Like I said, there's quantum science, there's sacred geometry, there's teaching about oneness. They have a consciousness of oneness. And the planet, it's how they live. You get to go to this awakened planet. Like, what would that look like? How do they live? What's their economy like? How do they relate? What are their values? So that is really, it's a lot of awakening material throughout the novel, but done in the form, I call it a Trojan horse. So, you get in the gate with this epic adventure, but then you let out the soldiers of spiritual teaching in the middle of it. Yeah.
Right. Exactly. Which has happened throughout, the entertainment industry. But it's always wrapped in violence, always. Right. I'm thinking of The Matrix. What's the big one with the blue people on the other planet? What's it?
Avatar.
Yeah,
Avatar. Very violent. Yeah. Always. Yeah. There's a little violence in here. There's a drug gang, a Guatemalan drug gang. There's some violence, but it's not anywhere near either of those at all. But it is, it's more like Star Wars kind of, feel as far as
Star Wars is about war. It's like, right. It's always wrapped in violence. It's as if we can't be entertained without something blowing up or people's lives being threatened
this is very mild compared to what most of them are. But there is some, some of that, because it's like, it's a fun car chases and, exciting, barely getting by, out of these incredible scrapes. And and here's the thing too, Karin, they're in the Guatemala jungle and the Mexican jungle where the Mayan pyramids are. Mm-hmm. And that is nuts down there. So it's really talking about what's happening in the jungles that are being destroyed and why they're being destroyed too. So that comes through as well. So they land on Earth, and it's like, they say, oh my gosh, we're going down into a snake pit, compared to like where they are. It's like, this is crazy ego-driven place right now. Like, we want to save them, and it's like, oh my gosh, it's very intense for them to face. They're not used to the consciousness at all.
Yeah, absolutely. Earth is a snake pit compared to evolved civilizations. I did a show on Elizabeth Clara, who had an encounter with an extraterrestrial being in the 50s, took her to another planet in Alpha Centauri. And anyway, but one thing that struck me was when they were always landing, she was in South Africa on the top of the mountains, because they said the pollution on Earth is just so
in the 50s. That was in the 50s. Mm-hmm. Wow. That's intense. Yeah. Right.
And so like our environment for races that are evolved, that are not doing to their planet what we're doing, it's toxic. It's like a toxic snake pit. I'm sure they have technology that allows them to exist in this world if they come here. But just thinking about your encounter with what's her name again? Kaya. Mm-hmm. She came in her light body.
Yes.
So she didn't sort of manifest into a more denser form.
Right.
Did she explain that to you, or you weren't asking questions at the time? It was just...
Yeah, no, she didn't. But to me, it's pretty obvious. It's like, and this is in the novel, her coming in in her light body and stuff. I mean, they do land in their actual bodies, but she does, she comes in her light body first. If you can do it that way and not have to land a ship and, whatever, and deal with whatever gravitational issues or densities, then, and she could just be right in front of me. in her light body. So it was, there wasn't ever it didn't seem like a possibility that they would actually land and come out in their physical form. But that's why Chris could go up, in her light body, and then Kaya could come down. So I think that was, on purpose. I don't know. I mean, it's easy to get lost in the veil here too. So,
and Chris, your friend, you saw her, a light leaving her body and going up to the ship. So she went up to the ship in her light body, or astral form, we call it.
That's right.
And yet they said to you that they didn't want to take you up there because you weren't ready energetically. Did they explain that further, like how you could get more ready? It's interesting. Yeah, a million questions. Why Chris was and you weren't. Like, has Chris' spiritual practice been, like, had she been meditating more? Like,
she had done some astral traveling, some very consciously. She was very, very much wanting to do it. It had happened to her kind of spontaneously one time, and then she was really wanting to. And so she had actually studied, tried and practiced, had not had a lot of success at it, but she was very open to it and had that one experience. So I will tell you that just the experience that I had with Kaya and that night blew me out for about a year. I was so ungrounded for a year, a year. Yeah. I mean, I have to say, I came into this life with some heavy karma with some past life stuff. So, I've worked through a massive amount of it, but, I didn't come in all, all awake Yogananda out, when I'm 5 years old. There's
so much synchronicity happening just in this conversation right now. I'll tell you why. But anyway, go on. Yeah.
Yeah. So, I'm not sure why I was given the mission here, but, it's pulled me up. It's pulled me in my journey up much faster than I think I would have, transcended.
So I suspect this is one of the main messages to the book, that, lots of people are listening, reading books and listening to extraterrestrial encounters, and they're like, oh, I want that to happen to me. Or spiritual experiences, or, spiritually transform it. Oh, I want that to happen to me. But there needs to be a level of consciousness available for that to happen to you. Like, it's so funny that I was watching a movie last night about a famous author, and I met his daughter and was massaging her many years ago when I was a massage, and she had a picture of Yogananda. This is the synchronicities. Right. On her dressing thing. She was out here in a hotel, and I was massaging her, looking at this long-haired sort of Indian teacher, thinking, what is all this Indian guru stuff about? That was my question. And I had this crown opening experience where I felt like my head was viscerally kind of like my ears were hitting the walls. But I was sick after that for so long. Like, I had a headache, like my energy body, my body wasn't ready for the spiritual download, if you like.
There you go.
Yeah. And I was channeling to her, told her why she was here, why she was on the planet, why she chose the family she came in with. Like, I'm doing all this stuff. Like, I'm in my 20s. I didn't know I could do any of this stuff. I just couldn't stop my mouth talking. Like, my ego's going, you don't know this stuff, shut up. And my mouth's just talking. And so I wasn't ready, because I was still holding on to self-criticism and just holding on to all that muck that we believe about ourselves. Yeah.
Right.
And so we've got to do the work. We've got to let go of the negative belief systems in order to be available for this sort of thing.
Yes. And then grace can happen in spite of, whatever, however thick the veil still is for us. But, since then the veil has lifted completely many, many times. And and it just keeps getting thinner and thinner. And so, I think we kind of ripen ourselves to be able to have these kinds of experiences. We can't make them happen, but we can become ready for them to happen. I think that, and then it's just grace.
Yeah, grace. And 20 years in the making, or it's 27 years in the making, really, isn't it, the book, because you spent 7 years writing it. And humanity is ready for it now as well. So let's get into the science in the book, because you got all the downloads about the science. What was the most profound thing that you learned that
the most profound thing, and it's throughout the book, is I started to see this image, this shape, three-dimensional shape of a sphere with a axis through the center, an empty axis through the center, and turning like this and spinning this way and then this way. And I did not know what this thing was. I just knew that it was somehow related to the potentiality for infinite free energy, unlimited energy. And it also was coming to me about that this could be used for space travel. And jumping out of space-time and then coming back in. And so I started to, I spoke about it to a friend of mine who is this very cool, kind of highly evolved being. And he told me, he's like, oh yeah, that's called a torus. And I was like, oh my God. And so I had no idea what it was even called, and found out that it's sacred geometry, and it's the shape of everything from, our human consciousness with the sushumna, the central channel, and then the aura coming around and then coming back up like this, to atoms, the galaxies, spiral galaxies, and even the universe is in this shape. So it started to take shape for me about that. So on AKARA, what they do is they, at the end of the rebirthing era, at the end of the ravaging era, so they're almost at extinction. And through grace, this brother and sister science team discovers that they can harness the shape of the torus and create a mini universe. And if they can spin it fast enough, and what they do, and this is just part of the story, is they use all of their resources, pretty much every last resource of energy, to spin this original torus fast enough to get it to self-generate and become a self-generating energy source that then, once they perfected it, they can then turn it into everything that little one, tiny, could power a computer, to a larger could power a whole city. And then they discovered that you could use it. So how they travel in their ships is there's a torus in the ship, and it's an active torus, and then they merge in consciousness with the torus. So then, and when they merge with it, and then they set in their consciousness the intention of where they want to be in the universe, in the physical universe, and then they blink out of existence into the center emptiness, the sacred emptiness of the quantum field, and then that with their intention, they then pop into the coordinates that they have intended, and so they're across the galaxy in seconds. And then there's quantum healing with it as well, because if you can merge with, if you can take that the energy of the form, the movement of energy that is what we consider to be form, and then you can blink out of it. So we know this from meditating. If we can go deep enough into the quantum field and consciousness, we can come out of it and have healing experience. So using this technology can create that experience of going into the quantum field, basically disintegrating, and resetting the blueprints for our incarnation in a way that's whole and healed and released of the disease.
It's amazing. So you were receiving all this information about the toroidal field while writing the book in those 7 years, like while you were writing it, or did you receive that before? Before.
I started receiving this pretty much right after the experience. I started to have visions and get these downloads. And then so I always knew this was coming. I always knew this book was coming, but I knew I wasn't ready. I just didn't have the chops as a writer. I didn't, and the spiritual development either, to be able to write about an awakened world. I was like, oh my gosh, there's a line in the book that says it was, something, Diego, the jungle ranger, he's a ranger who protects the jungle. And he says, trying to understand that these are really aliens who've just landed in his midst is like trying to put his arms around the sun. And that's how I felt about writing this book. It was like trying to put my arms around the sun. And so, it took a long time for me to become enough. And then I still needed Julia, who's the smartest person I know, to come in and help to take it to a different level. Yeah, and she's well versed in spiritual stuff too. I didn't actually read out her bio. Let me just read her bio for those people. A former award-winning Madison Avenue advertising executive. She's currently a spiritual life coach. I think, did I read that before? She's also a writer and creative partnership with the work she put together. No, what was it? Said that she'd spent time in ashrams. Where are we here? Living for months in a Buddhist retreat center and regularly attended 10-day silent meditation retreats in monasteries. Yeah, so she's done a lot of spiritual stuff. But the toroidal field, the torus, as you talk about, is so well explained in the Thrive, What Does It Take first movie. And I saw that, like, I don't know, 10 years ago, 2012. I think it was 2012, and I met Foster Gamble, who made it, who was out in Australia promoting it, and I went to a talk that he did, and that blew me away, because I'd been involved in spiritual stuff for years, and I'd heard about anti-gravitics, and I'd heard about crop circles, and I'd heard about aliens, and I'd heard about spiritual stuff, but they were all in these other compartments, right? Then I watched this movie, and he brought it all together in this movie, and it blew my mind about how the crop circles are 2D representations of energy and the toroidal field, and and he made them 3D and stuff, and I'm like, it was so cool. I know, I love it. So after my friend tells me that it's called a torus, I Google, of course, and that's what came up, and I'm watching this, and I was like, like, whoa, this is it. That's what I'm talking about. That's what's being shown to me, and I'm not a scientist. And here's another really cool thing. So after I put all this science, into the manuscript, and then I was like, oh my gosh, I wonder if, how theoretically plausible this stuff is. So through grace, I met a NASA aerospace engineer, an atheist, mind you, an atheist NASA aerospace engineer, but a sci-fi geek, like total sci-fi fan. Yeah, like my brother, atheist sci-fi geek. Yeah, go on. Right. Yeah. So kind of, if you're a sci-fi geek, you got to be open to some pretty cool stuff. But so he read the manuscript, and I said, I want you to look at all the science in there, and I want you to vet it to see if it's theoretically possible, because I don't want to put something out that then some engineer comes back to me and says that you couldn't possibly. And Karin, all of it, he tweaked a couple of tiny things, nothing about the torus, nothing. He didn't tweak. He said yes, all of it is possible. There's one cool thing that I want to tell you that he tweak. So in the novel, they have this technology that they have a bag, you put food or whatever in a bag, and they can take the bag when it's empty and put it in their hand and squeeze it, and it disintegrates into nothing. And he said that is actually theoretically possible, except you would have to have something left over. He said, so just have it where there's a little bit of H2O in their hand, a little bit of water is left over, because that's what it breaks down to. So that was theoretically possible as well. So that was a really cool thing that he did that. And he loves the novel, and he's an atheist. I was like, this is so cool. I understand why people are atheists, because the representation of God has come through the dogma of religion. And when you listen to that stuff, you just go, oh, that's bullshit. Yeah. Anyway, so I heard you say that on another podcast. And then you spoke about, the transition, the states of water. And I thought to myself, what a scientist thinks is theoretically possible today is going to explode in our future. So, I mean, we're getting future intelligence, or you're getting future intelligence downloaded into this book. And a scientist today is not up to speed with them. So anyway, that was one thing I thought. And I also thought,
he said there'd have to be something left over. And that something left over doesn't necessarily have to be in a liquid or solid state, it can be in a gaseous state, right?
True.
Which looks invisible.
True. Right.
So that water could just turn into steam anyway, my imagination is going. But the thing that I loved that you said in another podcast was how, talking about critical mass and, how different states are changing and transitioning. Oh, your review changed. Do you want to talk about that? Because I've been telling everyone I've met, everyone,
good.
Even in groups, I've been saying, I heard this from Dayna.
Yes. Very important. This is so important. In the story, during the ravaging era, what happens is it's madness on this planet. They are in the height of egoic separation and fighting each other for the last resources on the planet, destroying the planet, just trying to get everything they can for themselves and their family and their tribe and othering everybody else. So, but with the people, a few people called the wise ones decide they are going to stop. They just are going to stop. They're going to forget and forgive. They're going to forgive all of the stories of that you did this to me and you started this and I'm the victim, and they just walk away and they go to areas called the vital zones. So the last remaining areas on the planet that are really livable and clean. They find these very remote areas and it starts to happen all over the planet. And the wise ones begin to wake up. They have spiritual awakenings. And what they find is that later when the rebirthing happens is that once a critical mass of beings have an awakening, then the whole of the planet has a spontaneous shift in consciousness. And that's how they get out of the ravaging era. So that's what we are trying to say. We want to have our own rebirthing on Earth with hitting a tipping point. And actually, Ken Wilber, who is considered the Einstein of consciousness, he says that we are between 5 and 8% right now of what he calls integral level of consciousness, and he theorizes, and this was after, again, this is all told to me before. So after. I saw that he theorizes that once we hit 10%, then it starts to pull everybody else toward that consciousness, integral consciousness or oneness consciousness, where we actually see each other as our other self. Right? It's like, you are my other self. And so, so it gives us hope, because out of that kind of tipping point, once we hit a tipping point like that, and once we hit a critical mass, then out of that consciousness, technologies, ideas, and shifts can happen that will clean the planet and heal us very quickly. But we can't heal the problem at the level the problem was created. And so we're calling it, let's have a rebirthing on Earth, our own tipping point.
Absolutely. My guides have said exactly the same to me. They did say, however, it was less than 5%, the tipping point. And I said, really? They said, we must stipulate, though, that this is not 5% of people thinking about this stuff. This is 5% of people living it. That was the crucial part. So there's a lot more people who are thinking about this stuff, watching it on entertainment and going, I believe in aliens, and I can meditate. But they're not living it. They're still fighting on people and fighting with people. Judging and criticizing, and God, during the Trump year and then the pandemic, the amount of conflict that was revealed inside of people that call themselves spiritual, and yet all this hatred and you're wrong and I'm right, and separation was revealed. I won't say it happened because of it. It was revealed because of it. So, so that less than 5% tipping point or critical mass was that you have to actually hold that frequency, hold that vibration of grace, of love, of oneness, of unity.
That's right.
Yeah.
I totally agree. In fact, in the book, we made it 1%.
Oh, wow.
We made it 1% because it was really people who had completely surrendered the need to fight
and be right.
Fight and be right. It's complete and total forgiveness. I'm so excited too, because I want to Also, the other reason that we made it 1% is because Maharishi Mahesh Yogi, who founded the Transcendental Meditation movement, did experiments in different cities where he took 1% of the population of a city meditating and showed that it changed many social conditions in that city for a period of time. Crime rates were lowered, fewer hospitalizations, all kinds of things lowered with 1%. So we also, were like people who are really practicing, like you said, real awakening. It could be far fewer than 10%. And so it's an exciting thing. It's really exciting. And I'm so excited because we want to write the prequel and go back to the ravaging era when that ravaging era is happening and show how they did their awakening practices to come out of the trauma of the ravaging era and to experience awakening in the midst of it. So I'm hoping to get to write that book.
Yeah, it'll happen. What I loved about what you said on this other podcast was the analogy that you used with water. That's what I've been telling. I've been just sharing that analogy in communities, like, because there's so many people that are, in spiritual communities and they think they're like, the world looks like it's getting worse, not better. We've been talking about awakening for like 20, 30, 40, 50, 100 years. I don't see it happening. I just see more chaos. Do you want to share that analogy?
Yes. So there are several analogies in science, in the natural world, that relate to tipping points, and one of them is with water. So with water, once it hits a critical temperature, so at first it starts, when you heat it up, it's very turbulent, and it feels like, this complete chaos and mess, and it starts to boil. But then it hits that tipping point, right? That particular place where it turns then into steam. And the steam is this light, completely different energy and experience and expression of water. So it's totally different than the boiling. And that's what we have. That's the opportunity that we have right now. We are now in the turbulence of the boiling water, but we have the opportunity to turn to steam and lighten up and rise above that and completely have it be a different world order. Yeah.
Just loved that analogy and I've been fleshing it out ever since I heard you talk about it. I even did a quick talk in a group that I was in too. And I said, I was sharing that analogy and I said, so in a chaotic world, be the steam, not the water. And but, when you think about the chaos, I had, I've gone blank on her name. She channels Mother Mary. It'll come to me in a minute, on the show a couple of years ago, that spoke about the chaos energy that we're in at the moment, and that it is the feminine energy, it is the creative energy. From chaos comes new creativity. And I'm like going, oh yeah, that sounds so cool. And when you think about the chaos of the boiling water, it's like all the water doesn't become steam at once. It sort of moves, and then it gets more like there's little drips of steam coming, and then there's more steam, and then there's like this great, and so that's kind of what's happening to humanity. Like there's little drips of people awakening, and then more people awakening, and then there's critical mass, and then but it doesn't happen like bang all at once. It does happen over a period of time, and I'm thinking, that's so cool. The analogy is so pertinent, so cool of the transition.
There's another really cool one that I love too, and that is a laser beam. So when a certain number of, it's actually the square root of 1% of the photons of light in a field become magnetized to each other, the square root of 1%, it causes all of the other photons in the field to come together and create a laser beam, which is such a powerful force that can cut through cuts through anything else. So that it doesn't take much. It's like these things, we can affect the whole with a very little magnetized energy. But if we as individuals can hold that energy, we can affect the whole. It doesn't take a huge amount. We can offset, David Hawkins talks about offsetting, levels of consciousness. When you rise to certain levels of consciousness, you offset hundreds of thousands or millions of people who are at lower levels of consciousness. So it's such a message of hope, and possibility.
Absolutely. And the channelings of Abraham through Esther Hicks has said the same thing. One person connected to the stream of pure positive energy is more influential than thousands who are not.
Yes, exactly.
So
exactly. So don't give up. It seems very turbulent. It seems like craziness and chaos and everything, but and there is, let's be real, like there is a lot of chaos going on, and for us to go into that sacred place within on a daily basis and find that quantum field within ourselves, which really is love. It's filled with sacred love. That's what Kaya showed me, is the evolution is so profoundly loving, that, and for us to come into, and the bridge, as the Course in Miracles says, is forgiveness. Forgiveness is the bridge of everything that we've ever done, everything that's ever taken place on the planet. Daily forgiveness. I was listening to somebody talking about Raymond Moody, who is the near-death experience guy, right? Yeah. He talks about how, these people have these near-death experiences, but they come back, and he said, it's hard living here. You still want to strangle at least one person a day, So we got to be compassionate with ourselves. I find that we are the most courageous beings in the universe. We can't be harder or more challenging anywhere. It can't. I mean, I've heard it's not possible that it's more challenging than this and so we are incredible beings, all of us who have chosen to be here at this time. It's like, wow, we are so amazing. It's really true.
Yeah, courageous beings. So something I was going to say, I've lost my train of thought now. What was it?
I think that having you doing this podcast, just what you've decided to do, and this beam of light into the world, me writing this novel, which I have to say, spiritual people, I'm going to tell you, read some spiritual fiction, please. People are like, oh, I read, but I only read nonfiction. I'm like, really? Because that's all you're going to see. Then you're just going to see more egoic storytelling. If you don't support spiritual fiction and you support spiritual storytelling, you're not going to see it on your screens and in your on your bookshelves. It's not going to happen. Yeah. So story is so important. It's such a huge thing. We have to tell new stories to wake up and heal. We must tell new stories. And so that's what, I'm trying to do, not just with this story, but to help open the door for other spiritual storytellers and conscious storytellers. Even do you get Ted Lasso there? Do you get the show Ted Lasso? It's on Apple.
Oh,
okay. It's in the United States.
I'm sure we get it here, but I haven't watched it.
What is it? It's so sweet. It's just, it's a sitcom, and there's so much sweetness, and there's so much spirituality in it, and it's so kind. And it's so, it's not like super spiritual or whatever, overtly. There's hints, little hints, but it's about kindness and forgiveness. That's what it's about. And so it's, that kind of programming, and it's so popular. People are dying for this stuff. It's like, get a clue. Come on, let's have more of this, So, and then, who else has figured this out? Pixar. Disney, Pixar, the little kids, all of the most profound spiritual entertainment lately has been for the children. And I'm like, wait a minute. So they have Soul, Encanto, Frozen, especially Frozen 2, very spiritual, these movies for children. And I'm like, let's transfer this. It's great entertainment. We can do this as adults as well, but it's going to have to be driven by audience. It's like, we need to support these kinds of stories. Right.
And I once spoke to somebody who talked about entertainment, and even in the news field, he said that there was a famous saying that said, if it bleeds, it leads, going back to the violence. If it doesn't have violence in it, then the people with the big money are not interested in it. But that's got to shift, the audience has to say, I'm hungry for things that is not about bleeding. I'm hungry for this stuff. But talking about telling new stories, you know, the stories that we're telling, the stories that we're watching, are the stories that we're telling ourselves about who we are. You know, like as I watch entertainment, it's about getting revenge and being pissed off, and somebody's mean to you, has done something terrible to you, and instead of allowing that to be a spiritual awakening and seeing how you've created all of it, it's like, I've got to revenge and kill that person. And they're the stories we're listening to, and they're the stories we're telling ourselves. And so, the most important story is the story in our head. I'm not enough. I'm not good enough. I can't get what I want. And, you know, strategizing to like, how can I get what I want? It's not okay just to be loving and have it all magnetized towards you. I've got to lie and deceit and tell, in order to get what I want. Yeah. The stories we're telling ourselves.
Yes, it's true. It's all true. I mean, how many stories of revenge and betrayal and revenge, you know, are we going to be interested in, you know, it's like, he cheated on me and I'm getting back at him, and, you know, whatever it is. And then the other stories of showing us is really greedy, you know, a lot of greed, you know, and stepping on other people to get what we want. The depictions of humanity that are the primary depictions that we're seeing these days, I mean, it is like, whoa, hair raising, you know?
You know, one of the biggest stories that are told in entertainment is killing people. And it's always over money, usually money or jealousy or revenge.
Right.
It's like you kill somebody over money, like it's gangster things, you know, I'm going to shoot you because you're stealing my money. It's like we've made money so important that we would take another human life. And that to the person that is completely immersed in entertainment is like, yeah, that's normal, you know, and to a highly conscious civilization, they must look at this and go, oh my God.
Oh my goodness. Oh yeah. There's a scene in the novel where they, you know, the Akarans come here and they hide behind the moon to kind of like figure out Earth and how, okay, we're going to go down. Where are we supposed to go? They're not sure where exactly even the Mayan pyramids are. They don't even know what they're called. They just have this footage that they're trying to figure it out. So they're behind the moon and they're watching entertainment. They're watching some, you know, news, and they're watching some entertainment, and they look up movies about aliens. Like, what is the perception of you know, extraterrestrial beings? And they're like, oh my gosh, this is horrendous. They're gonna think we're trying to like take over and, you know, like, oh my, you know,
kill people, kill
people and you know, own their bodies and, you know, whatever. And so it's just, that's a really funny scene when they're trying to figuring this stuff out, and they're just like, oh, this is not good, you know. And they're like, you know, but they have this compassion because they've come from their own ravaging era where they came out of that. So they don't have judgment. They're like, oh, this is part of the evolution of consciousness, and it's freaking us out, you know, it too. Because it's crazy to, you know, can you imagine being on an awakened planet where it's like everybody sees each other as one? It's just, there's no separation, and there's just awakeness. And, you know, people, if the stuff comes up, you work through it. There's healing centers everywhere, all of that. And one thing that I love about the novel is there's these academies called Entelechy academies. Mm-hmm. And they are for young people. Entelechy means the innate, that seed within you that is ready to flower and become whatever your purpose is in life. So the entelechy of an acorn is to become an oak tree. Right. So the entelechy, we have entelechy within each of us of what is our highest vibrational path. And so that's their schooling. They send their kids to Entelechy Academy to find out what that is within them. And then they encourage it. So can you imagine living in that? How amazing that would be?
Yes, I can imagine it. And I have been imagining it most of my life, the intensity Academy is something that was a download to me in 2013, 14. Yeah, creating university academies just for that spiritual consciousness awakening.
That's right.
Yeah, I can't imagine it. Yeah.
Yes,
absolutely.
exactly. I mean, and this is what we need to vision. This is what we need to depict.
Right.
And this is what we need to envision and hold within ourselves, rather than the depictions that we're seeing now. It's like, it's not good. It's not helping at all.
Right.
They're not helping us. It's helping things fall apart really, really fast. So, and we don't have to do that. So turn off the TV with, the news, and turn on the highest vibrational entertainment that you can, and read books and stories, not just, nonfiction. I'm telling you, read stories that are uplifting, super important.
Yeah. I've had a few people on the show that have that same intent of creating comics and fictional entertainment with spiritual messages to get it out there to the mainstream media. But how do you spell entelechy?
ENTELECHY.
Entelechy. Wow. Entelechy Academies. Oh, I'm loving that.
Entelechy Academies. Yeah, check out the definition of an entelechy. It's such a cool
So where
word.
does that word originate from?
I don't know. Who I heard say it first was Dr. Jean Houston, who gave us a quote for the book, and so I just, she talks about entelechy. She's such a visionary, and so she loved this because it's this visionary depiction in story form.
Yeah.
So absolutely. She's a huge fan of the novel.
Absolutely. It's something I tell my tribe to do all the time. Instead of focusing on what is that's distressing you, use the what is to give birth to desire, to think about what could be. And like Esther Hicks or Abraham, through the teachings of through Esther, says, like most humans are, their vibration is set because they're focusing on what is that they don't agree with, whether it's personal or collective, and that's creating their vibrational frequency. Instead of being deliberate enough to focus on, like, to use the what is to give birth to desire. So if that's what I don't want, what do I want? And then shift the focus from what is to what you want, and allow that, the imagination, the focus, the desire, allow that to pull you into that, into that future, and to change your vibrational frequency. Yeah. Right. And so media understands this. They present you with all the stuff that's going wrong, and everyone's in chaos all the time. And so our frequency, the collective consciousness, the collective frequency, is one of fear.
That's right. That's right. The other thing that I think is important, in addition to holding the vibration that you want, and what do you want to experience, and how would it feel to have and be who you want to be. I was doing that this morning before I got out of bed, of like, how would it feel for this book to really reach, across the world, become a movie, really be able to have spiritual storytelling be something that breaks through this glass ceiling in the entertainment industry that says that spiritual storytelling isn't a thing unless you're 5 years old, and so, and I just, this gratitude, it was just like this, oh my gosh, this incredible, immense, like fireworks display of gratitude within me, because it's not me, this is what's wanting to come and be in the world now. It's wanting to happen in the world. So that's important. And also what's really important, because we all have gone through, as we've talked about, we're very courageous, is to really understand that we've all had traumas. We've all had traumas, because almost everybody's raised by parents who are in an unconscious state. So, to also do, and I want to depict this in the next novel, of how they woke up, is like really be gentle with ourselves and understand and have compassion with our trauma that we've been through. So it's not just because we can bypass, we can try to bypass the pain and the hurt and the shadow, but it's also the shadow work that we need to go into and get real about, get really honest with ourselves about what's going on inside of us, and then do the awakening, the holding the vibration work, and some people, don't have a lot of dark material to work with, but a lot of people do, especially these days. And, we're all kind of traumatized by COVID and the, political landscape, and now Ukraine. Oh my gosh, oh, that's insane. So yeah, so just, it's like, I'm just feeling a lot of love and kindness and compassion for us as a species, and that we need to share that with ourselves and each other.
Beautifully said. Yeah. Not only is it wanting to be birthed, it already has been birthed. It exists in time and space. I think that the compassion and the love of highly evolved civilization is, just like you say, because they live outside of our linear time experience. They, regardless of how long they live, they can see where their civilization has come from, and they can see the past, the present, the future. They have this gift of being able to navigate time and all its aspects. I've had so many people on the show who have been contacted by either by ETs or angels who have opened up probable futures and shown them probable futures.
Wow.
To some of them that were just a bit like your experience, but some of them were children at the time. I remember Lorna Byrne said that she was like about 10 years old, and the angels showed her all these probable futures, like this screen opened up in front of her when she was outside over a river or a creek or something. Anyway, and she was shown all this destruction and world war and stuff. And I remember her saying, "What am I supposed to do? I'm just a kid."
Yeah, that would be overwhelming. Yes.
And again, people be up on ships with greys, and they've had the same sort of technology where they've, the looking glass technology where you can look into probable futures. So they have that hindsight of seeing the past and the future. And
right.
And even though they must watch this crazy world and what we do with our entertainment and what we think, they must think that we're a crazy maniac snake pit. They know that we're, and
they love us completely too. That's the thing.
Emerging culture.
Yeah, Kaya was just like, it was like as if I would walk through a forest and a baby panda would walk up like out of and I would just be like, oh my gosh, like a newborn baby panda, or, it's the most exotically beautiful, precious creature. That's how she saw me. Just like, oh my gosh, just so, so precious, like we as a species are just so precious to them, and so we need to hold that for ourselves as well. It's just because that's who we really are. We are so magnificent, even in our messiness, even in all the messiness. It's like, we are so profound that we've done this to ourselves, that we've veiled ourselves to this degree and come into this incarnation to like experience what it's like to be this dense, into this dense of an incarnation, and then have the experience of opening and awakening and opening and awakening through lifetimes. It's like, what a journey, that's a story. So we are telling the most incredible story possible right now. And that's what is, Easter just happened. And it really is the Jesus story. It's like we put ourselves on this cross of like this suffering and incarnating in this density. But then we resurrect out of it. We actually have this potential and truth of coming out of it, rebirthing, coming into a resurrected state, and knowing the truth of who we are. That's what the universe is about. I mean, this is amazing stuff to the universe. And that's why these beings are just like blown away. They just think we are incredible, because we're doing this thing that's just like this huge, huge, huge transformation. And it's happening right here with all of us, and all of us are little wildflowers across the planet. It's, it's like popping up everywhere.
It's happening right here, right now. I think that the message to anyone that has been going through their dark night of the soul is that density was created to be explored and witnessed and experienced, but it wasn't ever created to stay there. Like whatever you're going through, if you're feeling down or depressed or like I'm a failure, I can't get what I want, or whatever story that you've got going on, we created it to experience the density, but we never created it to stay there. It is that transformation out of that state out of the solid state into the liquid state into the gas state. That transformation, that is the journey we came for. And that's happening now, personally and collectively.
It is.
Oh, what an amazing story. Okay, so let's look future. I'm seeing a Netflix series made out of the book. Have you had any proposals for that yet? I'm seeing it.
Actually, it's a lot of people see it as a movie, a big sci-fi epic movie. Yeah. Because it's a really, it would be cool as a series, but it's a big, kind of like Dune, type of size of film. I mean, it would be a big production.
But the big epic movies turn into Netflix series. Like
that's true.
Dune is now. So there are more eyes on the streaming platforms than there are going to the cinema now. So,
yes.
I mean, we've got this idea that, success is the big blockbuster movie, but actually success is the series on the streaming platform today. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, for sure. It's, so yeah, I have some, some connections and people we're trying to get it to. So what really, needs to happen is just people reading it and holding the vibration for it, signing up for our newsletter, because on our website, you can actually sign up for our newsletter and it gives you the full story, like in detail of my experience with Kaya. We just send that to you. And it's really, I'm trying to build a tribe of people who are holding the vision for Earth as an awakened planet. Yeah. And also there's two really big missions. One is to have our own rebirthing on Earth, and also to transform the entertainment industry and the publishing industry so that we're telling new stories. So both of those things are on the website. We talk about those in detail. So yeah, I would love for people to read the book and join the tribe and, stay in touch and, tell other people about the book and, support conscious story.
Yeah, conscious media, support conscious media. I had that discussion with Stephen Simon on the show. Stephen and I have become friends. He spent his life, pumping out messages through the Hollywood system. Yes. Not specifically spiritual, although he did make the movie about the conversation with God about Neil Donald Walsh and the Indigo movie. But movie that was about romance and time travel and stuff like that with all his movies. So he's retired now, but I'm going to tell him all about this book.
Good. Everybody keeps telling me, yes, it's like he's on my list. Stephen Simon, get this book to Stephen Simon. So I would love to do that. It's really this one. I'm sure I'll
introduce you guys. Yeah.
Oh, that would be great. Just today, this is so cool, Karin. He's on my list and I'm like, because I've had other people say, contact Stephen Simon. He's perfect. But to be able to have an introduction would be so cool. I would really, really appreciate that.
He's retired now, but he would just love, because he has that same mission, because he's sort of winding up his life. He's written his own book about his communication with his wife who transitioned a few years ago.
Right. I saw that on his
website. He's sort of winding down. I don't know. I want him to, he's feeling like he wants to sort of go and be with her. But life, when we finish our life in this life, we still continue life. Like we still continue. Yes. Our mission never stops just because we leave our body. And I see him either incarnating back and like fulfilling more of that mission. And
that's cool.
But darling one, what an amazing book. Yeah, read the book. It's on all the platforms. I'll have the affiliate links on my webpage.
Yeah, Amazon is really the place to get it at the moment. You can get it on ebook and the audiobook. People love the audiobook. Our narrator is amazing. He's bilingual, so he does all the Guatemalan and Mexican parts with a Latino accent.
Oh, cool.
He just brings it to life on all the sacred parts. He totally gets the sacredness of it. He's amazing. So, and then of course it's a paperback, beautiful paperback. I would love for you guys to
tell us about the cover. What was the eye? So the eye, so people listen on audio, it's an eye and half of it is blue and half of it actually looks like a beach scene to me. It looks like the ocean coming onto the sand. That's what I thought.
Oh, cool. I like that. Yeah. It's an eye. Well, first of all, it's a torus, as you can tell. So it's the, the iris, and then the center of the torus is the quantum field, but that's the pupil. But also this is Mobius's eye. The main character is Mobius, a young alien on AKARA, and his eyes are half blue or partially blue and partially orange. And depending on the light light that he's in, you get more orange when it's lighter out and more blue when it's darker out. So he has kind of effectively built in night goggles into his vision with and so it changes depending on the amount of light. So they have very, very strong vision on AKARA. And so, they have large eyes and really profound vision. So the eye is, and the eye of awakening, just, wake up.
Yeah, the third eye of awakening.
Yeah.
Oh, how beautiful. Thank you so much,
All
beautiful
right. Thank you, Karen. Such a wonderful talk. I really enjoyed it.
What a wonderful conversation with Dayna. Wow. Sounds amazing. Can you envisage an enlightened society on planet Earth? Something I think about often. As we look out into the way the world is working in the moment, it seems hard to imagine that planet Earth can be an enlightened society. And many people who do think about it think that the only way that we can be enlightened and sustainable is to take ourselves out of society, to go into the country and live, off the grid and grow your own veggies and do all the hard yakka like they did in the past. But I really believe that, just like Dayna said, that when our consciousness shifts, we can use the technology that we're developing in a way that is beneficial for all, including the environment and the planet and the animals and everything, that we don't have to keep living in such a turbulent, violent way that we live now on planet Earth. So many practices that we have are so unsustainable and violent. Excuse me. Thinking of our food system, look, there's a Netflix documentary series called Rotten, which talks about the way food is produced all around the world. Nuts, avocados, the agriculture, meat and dairy industry, like all the industries. And it is shocking how our food is produced around the world and how much violence is. You'd think that growing avocados wouldn't be a violent thing, but the majority, especially for you guys in the US, the majority of your avocados come from South America, and there's a whole mafia cartel that are controlling the avocado industry. Like, you think that the humble little avocado that you put on your salad or your sandwiches doesn't involve violence, but not on planet Earth. Anyway, it's very eye-opening and shocking. It isn't enlightening, but it is eye-opening. And how can we do better than that? How can we do better than that? So the whole purpose of exposing the corruption here on planet Earth is to come up with new ways of doing things, rather than just assuming that the way we're doing things, everything, the way we propel our vehicles, what we eat, how we educate our children, our health system, our health care system, or our sick care system. And we just assume that all the systems of our world are just the way it's been done, and we don't think about changing them, but all of them need a revamp to move into an enlightened civilization. It all needs to change. And that's what's boiling on planet Earth at the moment. That's the transformation of our world, the tipping point, the boiling point as we move into the steam. Dayna and I were just talking about that. And she was saying, there's a lot more examples of how substance transforms on the website, which is the website for the book is awakethenovel.com is the website for the book. So there's lots to explore on the website about what's in the book and the technology and the science that's in the book, Awake the Novel. And she's also got, the Facebook pages and the Instagrams and all that sort of thing. Fascinating, fabulous, fascinating. Just love that conversation with Dayna. I'll get her back on the show. Hopefully she'll get the second book up and running. If all of you could visualize the book being made into like a movie or a Netflix series or some sort of streaming series, get out there on those streaming platforms, Disney, Prime, all those streaming platforms. We've got many of them. There's so many of them now. Binge, Stan. There's masses of them. Visualize it. Hold the image of it, and it'll happen. It'll help make it happen. Transform the entertainment industry. That's another industry that needs to be renovated. Turning our media diet, what we feed on with our minds. Our minds are feeding on the violence in the entertainment industry. Let's feed the world love. Let's feed the world love, feed the world possibility, creative potential, science possibility, consciousness possibility. Let's feed the world love through the entertainment industry. That's what I've been attempting to do with the shows for 12 years, pumping messages out there that are helping you awaken, helping you deal with your stressful and negative thoughts, helping you feel better about who you are as creative genius. You are all creative genius, and how you can affect this world with your consciousness, with every part of your being, how you can affect the transition of this world. Just working, when I say just, don't use that word just, working on yourself, personal growth work, transforming your limiting ideas about yourself, cleaning up the hatreds and resentments that you have towards others, your family. That work is so powerful in the collective, because we're all, united. And as you work on yourself, you are greatly helping this world transform. But what happens when we do work on ourselves and we do start to love ourselves more and to be more accepting of who we are and to be more aware of who we are as creative potential, we start receiving downloads from our higher self, our future selves, our spirit guides, our angelic team, our team. And as we receive those downloads, we get inspired, and then we get inspired to act. It's like, ooh, I want to talk about this. I want to start a podcast show, write a book, do a movie, write poetry, sing a song, start a retreat center, become a teacher. Yeah, we get inspired to act, but the work has to happen first, rather than wanting to be something and then struggling against your negative beliefs. That's hard, right? Clean up the negative beliefs, and then you'll be inspired to act and to put who you are out into the world in a way that can affect change for yourself and others. But as I say, just loving yourself completely and wholly is doing amazing work in this world. It's affecting the 5% that we spoke about, or the 1% in the book, adding to that critical mass of love. Be the love. Be the love. You are love. Remember to feel it in every aspect of your world. In every thought, remember to feel the love. Overcome the negative thoughts. Alrighty, I'm not going to say too much more. Amazing conversation with Dayna. I was looking forward to that because she sent me an email a while ago, and I booked the shows out, and I was watching her on other podcast shows, and I was thinking, oh wow, man, I can't wait to have this conversation. So I was really looking forward to that. All righty, who's coming up this weekend? Rachel Byrne's coming up to talk about dragon energy and light codes in the inner sanctum. And who else is coming up? Oh, there's a whole lot of other people coming up. Check out the website, karenswain.com/inner sanctum. You'll see people who are coming up. It is free now on the streaming platforms, on YouTube, and if you want to join the Zoom and meet the people, I should get Dayna in to talk about the book too. Yeah, I'll do that. You can come and meet the people that I'm talking to on Zoom. Just put your email in, and I'll send you the Zoom link, and you can come and meet the people. And remember, if you haven't checked out the book Awaken by Death, it is also available. Thank you again for listening and watching and sharing the shows. I really do appreciate all your love and support for the work that I'm doing in the world. Big love. Bye for now.